It's time to fuel up and geek out with Kilobytes and Caffeine. This is Kilobytes and Caffeine Nerdy Talk. Episode 0, recorded February 3rd, 2020. Hello, world. I'm back. Now, you might ask yourself, why are you saying I'm back? Well, for one, I am back to publishing on this channel again. I had to take a brief hiatus. Only thing I'm going to say about it publicly was depression. It's a hell of a thing. So, one of the reasons that I wanted to get back into podcasting was simply because I've had a bunch of really good ideas about things that I could talk about. And I was actually having a nerdy conversation with myself, or at least it should have been. And I kind of thought that it would have been some thought provoking conversation. So this is one way I kind of want to record it and put it out there. I also have various tech tales and stories that I could share from being out in the field. I've been in IT for 20 years. I have a family, I have a wife and two beautiful girls, and, live out in rural North Carolina. Now, rural North Carolina has not really been the greatest place to have an IT career. In fact, most of my jobs have been with large MSPs, or at least for the past decade they have been. Now, one of the questions that I get asked frequently is, why don't you go out on your own? Why don't you, just do computer repairs for people, like go to their homes or go to their businesses? Well, the thing is, I used to do that. That was how I made a living for a long time. When I first started in IT, I actually started just as a computer technician, then transitioned into more of an IT consultant as I started learning about networking and firewalls and security and all of that stuff. In 2005, I did branch out on my own and started my own independent computer shop. Now, there's really not as much money in working on computers for yourself as a lot of people think. Now, I want to give you an illustration of exactly how things can go really, really sideways when you take on a computer repair job. For a number of years, I have maintained a very, very limited amount of clients, and a lot of times I may not hear from them for 3 or 4 months, and that's fine. That is exactly how I want things. So, to me, it's supposed to be side money, fun money. Well, around the holidays, we were running really tight on funds, and I had a customer call me and tell me that they wanted to contract me to do a computer repair job. I said, okay, fine. So I went out and looked at the machine. It was an iMac, and looked up the parts cost. So the first thing I did was ask them if they were willing to replace it. But they wanted to try to repair the unit. And I understand that. I do that myself with units. I would much rather repair a computer and keep one running rather than just pitch one out the window and get another one. So I looked up the parts cost, and to purchase the parts individually, it was going to be, astronomical. But I found this parts unit that was supposedly the correct model and everything. I even emailed the guy about it, and yes, he said, "Oh yes, this is exactly the same model as the one you're trying to repair." He said this would be a great use of these parts. It had been dropped off of a desk, and the screen was destroyed. Now, granted, the LCD panel itself was still fully intact, but the glass had been shattered, and the corner of the unit was bent in. Perfect parts machine for what I wanted to do. But I knew that some of these iMacs, while they had certain model numbers that they shared, they had different system boards. They'd had different power supplies in them, so I wanted to make sure that it was the correct thing. He assured me all was exactly as I needed, so I ordered the unit. I'd already quoted the customer that it was going to cost about $300. And while the parts unit was only about $280, they went ahead and paid me for it. I told them what I was doing, and they thought it was a really good use of that hardware as well. Now, where things started going sideways was after I got the parts unit in. Everything was fine with the parts unit. I fired it up, tested it. Everything was working beautiful on it. I went ahead and removed the LCD panel, which was broken, and started harvesting the parts out of it. I didn't notice that things were going sideways on me until I had removed the LCD panel from the customer's unit. That's when I noticed that it had the wrong motherboard. Now, I was hoping that the power supply, because the power supplies were interchangeable, I was hoping that that would be a direct swap in, on, you know, swap them out the power supply, send them on their merry way. Unfortunately, it was a motherboard like I feared. So I went ahead and ordered a new motherboard for the unit, and I had to pay for this out of my own pocket. But when it come time to give the customer the bill, I didn't charge them for it. And here's why. The cost of the unit, sure, was about $280. Now, I had already told them that this was going to cost about $300. I was going to buy that, and then, my goal actually was to sell the parts that I didn't use. And that was how I was going to try to recoup my money. Ultimately, that didn't happen. I wound up losing $180. We really didn't have that kind of money to lose. I actually only lost $150, but in that transaction, I accidentally overdrafted our bank account, so I do count the $35 that I incurred as a fee in that. You might wonder, well, why did you do this? Well, let's look at it from the customer's perspective. It wasn't the customer's fault that the parts that I sent were incorrect. It wasn't the customer's fault that it took me forever to replace the unit. There were added parts, there were added delays. During that time, I caught a sinus infection. During that time, my second daughter was born. And if I had been in that situation, I would have been upset for the time delays. I would have wanted some sort of a discount. So when it come time to return the unit, she did ask me how much she owed me, and I had up until that point decided I'll just tell her $20. But so many delays, so much everything. I just told her, you owe me nothing. Here. Set the unit back up for her, made sure everything was reconnected correctly, put her on her network, everything was good to go. Now, she was also supposed to contact me for some follow-up work. I still haven't heard from her, and I don't expect to. That's just par for the course. Typically, with customers, you usually get a good repair out of them like that, and then you don't hear from them again. Now, I had another situation similar to this that happened to me when I had my business. Now, my shop was in a converted storage unit outside my home. Well, I say my home, it was the family home. I was acting as a full-time caregiver along with acting as a full-time business owner. Needless to say, I was a very, very busy person. But the office that I had was outside. And after I had contacted a customer to tell them how much their invoice was going to be, they were livid with me and said that they were refusing to pay it. I said, no problem. I will be more than happy to give you back your data and your computer. Come pick it up whenever's convenient. It'll be ready in the morning. Well, that morning when I went out to my office to unlock it and get my day started, first I noticed that my lights were on. That was uncommon. I typically turn my lights off. Now, sometimes I would forget and leave my lights on overnight, and I remember one time they were on for like 6 months, but that's another story. But what I found when I opened my door was unlocked, which I did not leave it unlocked. My padlock had actually been pried right off of the door. The hasp and everything was laying on the ground. And when I opened when I opened my office, guess what was missing? That customer's computer. The one thing they forgot was that I said that it would be ready that morning, which meant that it wasn't ready. The hard drive that I had already rebuilt and that they were refusing to pay for was sitting on my desk, which had all their data on it. I hadn't burned the DVDs yet. That was the first task that I had for that morning. I was going to burn those DVDs and set that computer up to give back to the customer. So they stole the unit, but they forgot to get their data. I thought that was kind of funny. Now I did contact the police, filed a full police report and everything. That was the only thing that was missing, so I certainly wasn't going to cause too much of a stink, but it did upset me that they had broken into my office. But it was such a low amount for the repairs and everything. I didn't even bother trying to claim it on homeowners or anything like that. So, ultimately I was out the $50 I was going to charge them for backing up all of their data. Their old hard drive was failing, and I did have to use a program, I think it was either SpinRite or Hard Drive Regenerator, to regenerate the bad sectors so that I could pull the data off of it and actually move their profile to the new computer. But, I was going to charge them $50 for that. I lost that. I lost another $30 for some more locks. I wound up putting 3 locks on my door. Ultimately, those were pried off, but that's a different story for another day. But anyway, so that was, $85 that I lost on that one. Now you might think, well, okay, you lose out on some of these, but you got these big wins, right? Not really. Most of the money that I made working on computers was from flat rate service fees, and in order to be competitive, I had to lower them. So I was trying to not be the cheapest in town, but let's just say I targeted the demographic that was very conscious of how much they were spending. I had a customer that, regardless of what I did, he always tried to negotiate me down on it. So I caught on really quick and started, whenever he would ask me how much something was, I would actually mark it $50 higher for him so that he could talk me down to my price, which was the same price anybody else got. Not sure if he ever caught on to that, but after the first few times. But anyway, this particular customer, every time I did a repair for him, I could almost guarantee you for the next 3 weeks, I would be getting nearly daily phone calls. Oh, it's broken again. Oh, it doesn't work now. Well, this doesn't work. Up to the point, I recall selling this person a used laptop. I sold it to them for $200. I tested everything fully whenever I tested this unit fully in my shop. I actually carried it as my personal laptop for a little while just to make sure that everything was working on it. Well, within 2 days of me dropping this laptop off, and I sold it to him for $200, called me and said, it's slow and it's got viruses. It's not my problem. But I'm trying to keep him happy because he was given referrals. So I go out on my own dime, clean it up, get it ready for him. A couple days later, well, now it don't connect to my monitor. I'll go out there, check it out. Monitor was just unplugged. Plugged it back up. It already said it was plugged in, but it wasn't. It is what it is. What was really frustrating was one of the next visits, he said that he went to put a CD in and the CD tray popped out of it. Now, I had loaded a new optical drive into this unit. Somehow, this brand new optical drive, which had only been used to install Windows and the software that I let go with this particular machine, had completely come dislodged from its housing and the ribbon cable ripped. I told him flat out, I'm not fixing this. This is physical damage. And he went ballistic. Absolutely ballistic. Well, I thought you gave a guarantee on this. This is, and I'm like, no. Listen, this is physical damage. This unit, this optical drive I put in here was brand new. Well, it just fell out. Like, really? I'm getting aggravated just thinking about it. Ultimately, I wound up trying to do the right thing, and I replaced the unit. $50. So now, I've already got a couple service calls into this, and now I'm down to only having 150 for it. Well, the screen decides that it goes out, and it legitimately goes out. I mean, I was expecting it to be shattered when he told me that the computer won't come on anymore, but it displays on the monitor. I was expecting that the screen was shattered, but it wasn't. It was legitimately out. So at the time, 15-inch LCD panels, my cost on them was $110. It was within the 30-day guarantee that I gave on it. Now, maybe that was stupid for me to do that. I don't know. This computer had been very reliable for me, and it died. So I replaced the LCD panel in it, and now I've only got like $40 back from this laptop. Then the power brick decided it died. So, yeah. $35 for a replacement power brick. So this computer, which I'll admit that I got for free, it was a trade-in. I only got $5 out of it, but I had to put parts into it. So I was already into this computer nearly $100. So you do the math on that one. Now, I've sold used laptops to people that ran them for years. Actually, I had one laptop that I sold 5 times because it kept coming back to me, not because it was defective, because they upgraded. And I actually thought that was a really good deal. And the thing was, it just every time I would sell it, I would just keep marking it cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. Ultimately, I gave it away, and because I had my money well out of it. Something that I bought on an impulse. I wound up paying, I think, $75 for it, and the first time I sold it was for $200. And then it came back, and I knocked off $100 from the sale of a more expensive computer. So then I turned around and sold it again for $150, and then this happened several more times, and then ultimately I'd gotten my money's worth out of this machine. During the process, I did have to put a new hard drive in it, but it wasn't a brand new hard drive. It was a used hard drive out of another unit, and wound up giving it to someone who, from what I understand, continued to use it until they could afford a brand new one. Now, they didn't buy it from me because at the time I was closed. They did enjoy it, and I'm glad that they got use out of it. I know I sure did. I even used it as my own laptop for a little while. I always did that with used laptops. I was very, very paranoid about sending something out that didn't work correctly. I had been burned too many times in the past doing that. So every time I got in a used machine, if I was going to use it or if I was going to sell it, I would use it for a while. It would become my new office computer. It would become my new field laptop. It would become something I would give it to a family member and let them try to, hammer out the kinks. So things like that, I tried to offer, good products for people. But unfortunately, there were just too many people that wanted to take advantage of me. And, after a while, it got to the point where I could no longer recommend my own services. That's when I knew it was time to hang it up. I took a job in 2007 as a warranty repair technician for another company, and that was the end of me doing private consulting, at least for every client. I still maintain a very, very small list of clients, and I will do freebie jobs for people in our church. I've taken on quite a number of those jobs where they needed computer repair, they needed screens, they needed hard drives, they needed memory, they needed, you know, any number of things. And if I had the parts in stock, I would repair it, hand it back to them. When they would try to give me money, I would turn it away. That's just the kind of guy I am. But that's also because I just want people to be able to enjoy technology. Technology can be frustrating for people. And, I always felt like people were taking their frustrations in technology out on me because I was the geek. I was the tech guy. I was the guy who was providing technology assistance for people. And when things would go sideways, immediately it was always my fault. At least that's how they thought of me, and that's how I was treated for the longest time. So, and it's still the case. I still get people who are having frustrations with technology, and they take it out on me personally. I got a thick skin now. Thank you so much for joining me on this little experiment. If you like what you see and want to see more of it, please like this video, comment below, subscribe if you're not a subscriber already, and don't forget to hit that post notification bell. If you'd like to see more vlogs like this, definitely let me know. They're not for everyone, and this is kind of an experiment. That's why I called it episode 0. Thank you so much for joining me.